Okay, so good day to you, class. This is our recording for Gagne's 9 events of instruction. So, as the title suggests, we're going to talk about 9 particular events that are present in an effective instructional phase. Meaning that when we teach, we need to observe the occurrences of this event in a deliberate manner. Okay? So this is an event or this is a series of events that we must plan towards. Okay? So, according to the Center for Innovative Learning and Teaching of Northern Illinois University, so we'll call that CITL for short, okay? This particular event of instruction needs the prerequisite teachers to have knowledge on the revised Bloom's taxonomy of learning. Okay? So, as also stated here, Gagne's 9 events are made to address and fully establish the mental conditions for optimal learning. So we're talking about the mental conditions here for optimal learning, meaning getting the most out of the time we are given in the classroom. Okay? So kaya sinasabi na dapat na-observe ang mga events na to is because whenever you teach, you want to achieve the maximum efficiency. That is the maximum use of your limited time in the classroom. So how do we do that? So let's dive right into the events. So the first event is to gain the attention of the students. So as the name suggests, we need to first have the attention of our students through different methods. We can use icebreakers, we can use reward systems, we can question our students, we can chit chat with them, and then relate it to the lesson. Kaya yung bang mga teachers ninyo nagkikwento ng kanilang mga talambuhay? It is first to gain your attention. However, as some of you may have experienced, yung iba, nasasobrahan na yung kwento. The effective use of that particular technique in the classroom is to use it to get their attention and afterwards connect it to your lesson. Okay? So, according to CITR, you can also have your students question other students. Okay? So, there are ways to do this naman. Meron mga activity dyan, mga round-robin method, mga passing questions, okay? Or technically, mga normal icebreakers. One example of this is when my teacher told all of us to stand, okay? So, we are not sure what we're going to do. But simply the teacher said to stand, okay, jump 3 times, okay, and then sit. Okay, that's a very a very dull icebreaker, but nonetheless, it achieved its goal of catching the attention of the learners. Okay, so technically, first and foremost, you get the attention of your learners. So next, you have to tell your learners about the objectives. So in a normal lesson plan, meron tayong tinatawag doon na learning objectives. Sa curriculum guide, meron tayong mga competencies. So all of these things must be communicated with the students. Okay? Especially if your objectives require a prerequisite of some sort. Minsan kasi, yung mga estudyante mo, nagsiset ka na ng objectives, hindi pa pala nila na-meet yung prerequisite skills. So for example, if your objective is to, for example, write a creative piece on feature writing. Okay, that's your objective. But you cannot set that objective if your students do not know what feature writing is. at the very least. Okay? And additionally, you have to inform your students of what your goals are because they can help you in the process of deciding which criteria is best to evaluate their skills. Okay? Because in a teaching process, there is always evaluation. Okay? Maaaring yung mga estudyante mo, meron silang mga criteria na gustong i-share. Mga criteria na gusto nila ay nandoon sa paraan or nandoon sa rubric na gagamitin mo to assess them. Okay? So, again, it is important for you to share the objectives of the lesson. Okay? The third one is to stimulate recall of prior learning. Sa ating mga lesson plans, this can be found in the review section. Okay? So sa review, technically ang ginagawa doon, nire-review yung mga past learning nila. Most importantly, ang nire-review ay yung mga prerequisites ng iyong current lesson. So you can do this through a short lecture. You can have your students report on what they have learned. You can have students answer particular questions regarding their previous learnings, or even you can have your students share to the class their personal experiences within that particular lesson. Okay? Of course, you can also do activities here. So with all the plethora or the choices that you can have in stimulating recall of prior learning, it is important to always involve the learners because, again, nire-recall yung learning nila, yung prior learning nila, hindi ng teacher. Okay? Again, kasi pag nire-recall natin yung mga prior learning ng mga bata, chances are they are more ready to connect their prior learning to new learning. Hence, the need for its recall. This coincides with many of the principles of learning proposed by Thorndike in your previous courses. Okay? Naaalala pa ba yun? Of course, baka hindi na. Because again, that is not something we stimulated. Okay? Hence, you see the need to stimulate recall. Because at this phase, even you, now that you're listening to me, you might think of previous theories that you can connect to this one. You can think of previous activities or methods that you can do with this one. That is you stimulating your own pool of knowledge to ready yourselves with the new content. Okay? So again, it is important to stimulate that pool of prior learning. Okay? Now, number 4, we present the content. Oops, sorry. So when we say present the content, dito na yung tinatawag na lesson proper sa lesson plan. Dito ka nagagamit ng lecture method to lecture on your lesson. Okay? Dito ka nagagamit ng iba't ibang mga activities, ng mga instructional materials for your students to actually learn the content. Okay? Now, CITL suggests that we use multiple media to do so. May audiovisual material ka, minsan, pwede ka pang gumamit ng model, pwede ka pang gumamit ng realia. It is okay to use different media, but be careful in using a combination because, okay, when you're using a media, use it one at a time. Hindi pwedeng sabay-sabay yan. Okay? That's the principle of instructional tools, actually. You can use many materials, but you do not use them all at the same time because that will overload your learners. Also, this is the part where the teacher creates an instructional tool that allows learners to have independent learning. Okay. So, importante sa materials mo na merong content and at the same time, meron siyang what do you call this? Meron siyang leeway for your students who are actually very interested to do learning of their own. Pwede ka mag-iwan doon ng mga passages going to advanced parts of the lesson. Pwede ka mag-iwan ng mga hyperlinks going to more advanced topics related to the lesson, and so on and so forth. Another way you can do this is to add many examples in your instructional tool. Again, you do not need to discuss everything in your instructional tool, especially if your time is limited, but you can add a lot of examples for your students to do independent learning. Okay? So that's event number 4. Now let's move on to the next event. Event number 5. So we provide learning guidance. Okay? So when we say provide learning guidance, we have to direct our students in the learning process. Once you have presented your lesson, you also have to ensure that your students learn what you needed them to learn. Okay? Kasi meron mga estudyante na kahit i-present mo yung lesson, kahit bigyan mo na handout, maaaring hindi matututo. That's why we provide guidance to those students. Okay? Because chances are, if they are not guided, they might stray from what you want them to learn. Imbes na matuto sa gumamit ng fractions, or imbes na matuto mag-divide ng fractions, ang ginagawa ay nagmo-multiply. Ang ginagawa ay ibang mga processes. Okay? Hence, we must provide them with guidance. So, CITL added several techniques to do just that. One of the techniques is yung tinatawag na scaffolding. This is basically becoming a tutor. Okay? I-tutor mo yung bata up until the time that they can do the activities on their own. Okay? So, kasama dito sa concept ng scaffolding yung tinatawag na zone of proximal development. Yun yung gusto mong ma-achieve when you are scaffolding. This is the zone where the students can independently do a particular skill. So, scaffolding is helping your students achieve this zone of proximal development. Okay? Additionally, sinabi ng CITL na pwede tayong gumamit ng iba't ibang learning strategies. Pwede tayong mag-concept map, pwede tayong mag-mnemonic devices, pwede tayong gumamit ng technology tools or other means to visualize the material. Okay? So, pwede tayong gumamit ng modeling tool, pwede tayong gumamit ng GeoGebra, pwede tayong gumamit ng gadgets para mag-search ng images online for you to have a visualization of the lesson. Of course, CITL also added that we must use case studies, visual images, metaphors, and analogies for this particular event. So, bakit? Ang case study, okay, technically, it allows you to contextualize learning or to contextualize a topic to the real-world lesson. Okay? Yung visual images, as the name suggests, it allows you to have a visual idea of the lesson. Metaphors and analogies are used to connect prior learning to their new learning. Okay? Minsan kasi mas maiintindihan ng bata kapag meron kang ibang representation or ibang atake papunta sa bagong content. Okay? Minsan ayaw nila yung crude words. This is ganito. This is ganyan. Okay? Minsan, katulad lang yan ng bato sa sapa. Mga ganong uri ng metaphors or analogy. Okay? Some of you may have already observed this from your own teachers. Pag nakikita niyang nahirapan kayo, magsasabi niya, okay class, isipin niyo na lang na ganito yan. Okay? Parang ganito lang yan, class. All of those attempts to connect a particular concept from the actual concept to another concept is an analogy, and it helps you to understand the lesson in another way. So that is something you will do with your future classes. Okay? So next, we move on to illicit performance. So when you say illicit performance, have your students do a particular activity or a particular output. Okay? So ito yung parang formative assessment natin. Once your students have acquired the skill, okay, you have to test whether this skills or this set of skills are actually good enough. Okay? But you're not going to give it feedback yet. Ang gusto mo lang ay makakuha ka ng output sa kanila when we are in event 6. Okay? So CITL suggests na pag magpapa-activity tayo, we focus on authentic activities or yung mga activities na nagfo-focus sa higher order thinking skills or yung HOTS. That is applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. Okay? Mag-focus daw tayo sa tatlong skill na yon, but hindi natin pwedeng iwan yung LOTS. Remember that if we're talking about HOTS and LOTS, you cannot proceed to the higher order thinking skills without mastering the lower order thinking skills. Okay? So, ganun po sa illicit performance. So, pwede tayong magpa-report. Pwede tayong magpa-activity ulit sa kanila. Pwede tayong magpa-debate. Pwede tayong magtanong-tanong. Pwede tayong magpa-present sa kanila. All of these things are used to get the performance of the learners. Okay? So next, we provide feedback. As soon as you get their performances, you are obliged to give them an what do you call this? An assessment, or sorry, an evaluation, a preliminary evaluation of their skills. Bakit? Because if it is usually the first time that they performed a skill, chances are rough pa yung mga skill na yon. Marami pang mga kailangang what do you call this? I-polish. Hence, your feedback will serve as the grindstone that helps students to polish and remove the rough edges in their performances. Okay? Because these rough edges, okay, these crude skills are the gaps in learning. And pag meron tayong gaps sa learning, kailangan siyang ma-fill up. Kailangan siyang ma-complete. Okay? So according to CITL, there are 5 types of feedback. The first one is confirmatory feedback. This is a type of feedback that tells your students na tama yung ginagawa nila. Yes, tama yan. Okay yan. Ituloy mo yan. That is confirmatory feedback. Okay? This encourages your students to do and to continue and to push on with their particular endeavor. Okay? Next, we have evaluative feedback. We provide an appraisal of the student's skill. Sasabihin natin, ay, hindi mo pa na-achieve itong objective na ito. Okay, para may mali pa sa movements mo. Okay, dito sa part na to, medyo kulang yung explanation mo sa report. Okay? On this particular page, there are some grammatical errors in your work. All of those are evaluative feedbacks. You give them, you tell them where they are lacking, but you do not provide suggestions. Ini-evaluate mo lang. You're not suggesting, you're simply evaluating. Okay? Next, we have remedial feedback. Ito yung parang masasabi mong kabaliktaran ng confirmatory feedback. Because instead of encouraging your learners to do it on their own, ang gagawin mo, you give them clues. Okay, class? Try nyo tignan from this angle. Bakit hindi nyo subukang isolve from this particular point of view? Bakit hindi nyo i-present sa bakit hindi nyo i-present from ganitong perspective? Okay? Technically, ang remedial feedback kasi, clues lang yan. Okay? Minsan na pagbabaliktad dyan sa susunod na uri natin ng feedback, which is yung descriptive or analytic feedback. Kasi ito na yung nagbibigay ng suggestions. Diba? Pag nagbibigay ka na ng suggestions, para mo na rin silang binibigyan ng clue. However, the clear difference is when we're talking about remedial, you're only giving them clues. Okay? Hindi pa sila nakakagawa ng kanilang final product. Okay? Nagpa-practice pa lang sila, kumbaga. So, yun ay remedial feedback pa lang kapag nagbibigay ka pa lang ng clues. But if you're giving descriptive or analytic feedback, this is when they already have a particular outcome. Okay? You give them suggestions to actually improve this particular outcome. Okay? Bibigyan mo silang additional information or additional instruction. Of course, hindi naman porket descriptive or analytic, gagamitin mo na lang pagkatapos. You can also do it even before matapos yung kanilang output. But technically, most of the time, ginagamit siya after. Okay? Kasama niya yung evaluative feedback. I-evaluate mo, saka mo sila bibigyan ng suggestion, di ba? Technically, ganun yung ating learning process. Okay? Next, or the last type of feedback is peer evaluation and self-evaluation. This is the type of feedback na hindi nanggagaling sa teacher, kundi nanggagaling sa iyo at sa iyong mga classmates. So, ang pinaka-goal nito is to have you, yourself, perform metacognition, or you think about your learning. Saan ba ako nagkulang? Bakit niya pinili yung iba? Okay, ibang question na pala yan. I'm so sorry. Saan kaya ako mahina? Paano ko kaya i-improve itong kahinaan na to? Ano ba yung kulang sa aking learning? And ano yung pwede kong gawing solusyon? That is a particular self-evaluation, and that is also a kind of feedback. Okay? So those are the 5 different types of feedback according to CITL. Okay? Next, we move on to assessing performance. Okay? So ano yung sinasabi dito? Once you have them perform, okay, pwede ka nang mag-assess ng kanilang performance. Okay? Yung una, maaring formative, formative activity. Itong sa assess performance, this is yung ating summative assessment na. Okay? This is assessment after the lesson. Okay? Technically, dito daw, on this particular stage, kahit papaano meron ng level of sophistication yung skill ng mga bata. Okay? Kapag nagpa-formative assessment ka, pwede ka mag-before test, before and after. Para ma-compare mo, ay, ganito yung performance niya sa formative. Ay, ganito na yung performance niya sa summative. Okay? Those types of comparison can be done if you have done formative assessment, and of course, in Event 8, summative assessment. Okay? So, ano ba yung nakasulat dito? It is usually done at the end of the lesson. Okay? CITL also says na dapat, or recommends pala, they recommend that we have a pre-test, meaning, yun nga, formative test or even diagnostic test. Bakit? Because it serves as a stimulant for learners' prior experience. Because that is what we want to do, to connect the prior learning to new learning. Okay? That's a recurring theme in Gagne's 9 events of instruction, actually. That is under constructivism. Okay? You connect old knowledge with new knowledge. And that and assessment, summative assessment, is not exempted from that particular perspective. Okay? So you can do assessment in many ways. You can do pen and paper, you can do authentic assessment, you can do formative assessment. Okay, you can also use different tools. You can use conventional tools, you can have them report, you can have them role play, you can have them answer an online form, you can have them create a product, and so on and so forth. All of these ways to assess your learners, of course they are learned in your other courses, but always remember that when you are assessing performance, you must go back to the objectives. Your assessment should answer the question, have I actually reached my objectives? That is the main goal, the main use of assessment. Okay? So, yes. Again, as you can see in the last statement here, CITL strongly suggests to use formative assessment because it readies your students. And according to Thorndike's law of readiness, the more ready your students are, the better they will be at learning. And in the same way, the better prepared they are, the better their performance will be. Okay? So the last step or the last event in Gagne's 9 events of instruction is to enhance retention and transfer. Okay? So how do we do this? In a typical learning experience, we have what you call generalization or synthesis. Meaning this is the part where students reflect on their learning. Magagawa natin to through questioning. You can ask your students, what did you learn today, Mike? Yes. How are you going to connect this in the real life? Yes, Marie. Okay? These types of question on how they could apply their learning, on how they could connect their learning with other fields of learning, they are all in the aim of enhancing retention and transfer. Okay? Because the more connected your ideas are, the more memorable it will be. Okay? I have no researches found as of that right now. Of course, you can research it, di ba? Search nyo. Memory connections make it more memorable. Okay, I'm pretty sure that is one of the major tenets of constructivism. Okay? Again, this event asserts that we need our students to actively connect what they have learned to the outside world. Because more connections, more memorable. Okay? And pag mas memorable, then of course, the better we can use that particular knowledge. Okay? So, ano pa yung sinasabi dito? Once na naturo mo na yung lesson, you do not forget it. Okay? You do not put it in a closet never to be touched again. What you do, according to CITL, is you still incorporate it in your next lessons. Sa mathematics, this is easily done because previous concepts will always be the foundation of the next concepts. Sa social studies, maaring mahirap because one topic can be quite disjoint, meaning medyo malayo siya sa susunod na topic. But it is your job as teachers to connect this learning and also to expound on their usages on the other fields of knowledge. Kung ang naituro mo ay figures of speech, gagamitin mo yung figures of speech sa susunod na lesson. Okay? So, CITL also said na kapag natuto na yung bata, maganda kapag gagawa sila ng particular output to showcase that learning. Pwede silang gumawa ng video, gumawa sila ng interactive notes. Just have them present or have them record this particular learning through different media. Because, of course, maraming advantages naman, di ba, pag meron kang notes. But the advantage we're looking for is that when they present it on their own words, on their own terms, the better they will retain the knowledge. Okay? So, those are the 9 events in Gagne's 9 events of instruction. The use of technology further improves on the integration of the 9 events in our everyday learning. Kung dati na-observe nyo na yan, with technology, they can be intertwined and they can be better interactive with one another. Yung mga events kasi na to, they are not independent. Meaning, hindi sila isolated from one another. They jump seamlessly from one event to another. A good learning environment is when you do not notice na nagtra-transition na pala. Okay? And Gagne's 9 events, their transitions should be instantaneous and not observable. Okay? So, kumbaga, seamless. Diba? Walang palya. Klaro. That is, yes. Those are the major tenets of the Gagne's 9 events of instruction. Okay? So, isa lang yung reference na nagamit natin for this particular one. So, we thank Northern Illinois University for their published article. And, of course, for your activity, where I'm going to upload a Google form which you will answer individually. Okay, so I hope that you have a good day, and that is all for our recording. I'll see you on our synchronous meets. Bye.